For all who knew and loved Tim, the journey ended way too soon, of course. I know I feel that way, and Tim and I had many things in common, many things in common. We grew up in the same part of the country. We attended the University of Iowa, much of the same overlap time period. We lived for many years in Edmonds, Washington. We shared almost identical political beliefs, which I might say are mostly liberal, but with some good old Midwest common sense thrown in there as well. We loved music, we loved animals, especially dogs, and on and on and on. So many things in common. I always felt a special closeness to Tim. It's almost like I'd known him my entire life, honestly, but really I only met Tim a little less than 7 years ago, which is kind of amazing. And I felt so close to him because, not just because we had so many things in common, but because of what he would always leave me with whenever we would part company, whether it was a maxi finger gig or whatever, whenever I would see Tim, he would always leave me with his positive spirit, his strong values, and honest, candid approach to virtually everything and everyone he was involved with. And it's just so true. And he had a passion for people and a passion for everything that he would pursue. And he shared all those things with us throughout his life that we knew him. And we're all gathered here today to commemorate Tim. And sure enough, what is he leaving us with? All those same positive feelings that he was about, the love and the passion and the sincerity and the honesty and truth about life. Those are the things that I think of when I think of Tim Axtelle. And I think he's leaving all of those things with us. And again, I'm going to say, please, a little bit later in the program today, share your thoughts and remembrances of this great person. I should also mention that in preparing these remarks, Tana was kind enough to share with me a book about the Stipe family, the extended family that her father Al had put together. And what a wonderful book about a wonderful family. Hats off to Al, by the way, for putting that together. There you are. And thank you for that. It's very special. My wife stayed up until the wee hours last night reading it cover to cover. And I mean that. It's something that was bound together with a lot of love, and it comes through. In reading the section of the book that Tim wrote, I learned that his favorite book of all time was a book called The 7 Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence, an Englishman who all of us know better as Lawrence of Arabia. So I'm going to conclude these remarks with a quote from this book because I think it characterizes Tim. Someone who was always true to his convictions, passionate about the things he believed in, and the things he dreamed of accomplishing in his life. For Tim Axtelle, there was no halfway about anyone or anything. He was all in. He was a doer. T.E. Lawrence said it this way: all men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night, in the dusty recesses of their mind, wake up in the day to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are the most accomplished men, for they may act their dreams with open eyes to make it possible. This I did, and this Tim did as well. So before we move on in the program, let's just review the program very briefly. We're going to have some music from Caroleve, Axtelle, and then some very important memories from members of Tim's family. And then 2 of Tim's close friends, of his many close friends, Dan Fine and Bill Wilcock, are going to share some remarks. Dan Fine, by the way, has put together this terrific slideshow. Dan has so many talents, and among those are putting these kinds of slideshows and videos together. We're going to see a video he prepared as well. And then we're all going to step outside and put kind of the crowning touch on this event by the water in a remembrance to Tim. And then, of course, we're not done. We're all hopefully going to be able to come back in here and and continue on with the celebration in a social way. So I think the next thing to do is to introduce Caroleve, who's going to play a beautiful song, which is entitled Steve's Theme. So now we're going to hear from Tim's uncle, Michael Bach.
Wow. My sister Carol, Tim's mother, she said before, do you feel pressured to have to say something up here? And I said, no, just truly honored. That would have been awful. Wow, with this amount of energy here, it's amazing. So when I stumble and mess up a few words and do all that, that gives everyone, when you have your turn to come up here and share from your heart, you have the chance to mess up too, and still be accepted. My story with Tim is long. I was at his birth. I was at his baptism. when I moved out of our home, and we lived at that time in a funeral home. My dad was a funeral director. When I moved out, Tim moved into my room. And then after that, he was the ring bearer at my wedding, and actually he stole that show quite a bit. I was getting married. He would be walking around, if you'd see that, and he had this, and then when we did the garter picture, he was just like, wow. I still remember that. He just was in there, and when Tony, right? Did you get your run? When he said he was all present in things, he was all present in things. He was right there to the core. And that's one thing I really remember about him. I had the opportunity with Tana and Tim to marry him 20 years ago right here. And it's almost 20 years. And when I walked in here, the feelings that brought off. And he lived, and he always did live, fully with deep presence, giving everything in that moment. And I call that the valiant modern warrior. He was a warrior, but he was not the violent warrior. He was the new warrior I truly believe men need to live into. And he was the beginning of that. And if you look at the pictures, look at the different things. Sometimes he's soft. And other times you'll see how strong he is. You'll look at it, you'll see he's vulnerable. And another picture, you'll see how solid he is. And then you look around and you'll see, boy, he can be yielding at times. But you get to the right place, like at work or where he had a passion and where he was developing his truth, he could be assertive. You had to find those places to hold all that in his container that I now call a valiant modern warrior. And I hope we all can hold that in him, see that in them, and find that in us as men. And that's something he brings forth for us, and I think in a new evolution that truly I believe men have to live into. Since I did so much in funeral homes, I was there 10 years working in a funeral home. I had to been in like 50, 100, 200 churches. I was in a lot of churches. And they would sit up there, and I was started at 15. And you see people talk about people. And I'd say, boy, that guy sounds saintly. You know, if I ever get up, I'm going to tell something that's real and true. And what I said about Tim is real and true. And did he put his foot in the mouth sometimes, maybe at work for something he believed in? Yeah. Maybe that's the strength of a man, to risk in his job, whether he is right or wrong, didn't matter, the belief, and hold it and go forth and see what evolves. And I think he did that very, very well. And like I said, I was going to get disjointed. I stick to my words. That actually was leading to something. And I'm going to lead it to my story. And my story is that when Tim first came to Seattle, there was an Olympics going on or something, and Tom wasn't around, and somehow my mother and I and Tim spent 5 days together. And it was like for 5 days, we had our unique family. He was fully kind of my son, I was his father, then my mother was there, and then all of a sudden he was the father, I was the son, and this, and it was like 5 days of this magnificent time, and the Olympics were going on, and we would be hiking, and Tim and I would play tennis, and we'd do this, and be with my mother, and at the result of this 5 days, we decided 4 years later, we're going to really memorialize this and meet for another Olympics. Get together some way. The interesting part, we never did it, but we called each other in 4 years and we talked about it, the three of us. Well, our lives have evolved on, but the memory of that was so important that maybe we live little mini lives with people. And you just got to hold them and just appreciate them for the fullness of that moment in present time. And I really felt that I could do that with Tim, because I loved him because really we were part of family. But the truth is, I enjoyed him. I can't think of any time I wouldn't get together with him that I enjoyed him. And I thought, enjoyment or love? Well, love is good. Enjoyment, that's pretty good too. And I always thought that that type of enjoyment was very precious to me and Tim through my whole time. And when he had been all what I call his world travels, he would end up contacting me to meet somewhere every couple of years, do something together, and we'd go out and have a good time. And a couple of times he thought maybe he'd move there or get there some way more. It never happened. I thought, geez, I really missed that, because I would have had what I call more of what your friends and family had in real time when he was in his strength and his truth. So with that, Tana said, I have to talk from my heart when I'm up here. So in my closing, this really came through that had meaning to me, and I hope it has meaning to you. How could you disappear so suddenly, slipping away in the night without telling us your plans? Leaving us here, bewildered, staring numbly at the space you filled. How should we accept that there's no way of tracking you down, Tim, and bringing you back to face what we see as your responsibilities to us? How should we accept that the sprawling mansion of your life, with all its secret passages and winding halls and all the rooms you let us share, has vanished overnight with no trace left, almost as if it never stood? But underneath the sadness, there's a strange elation, a sympathetic joy. I can sense a gentle sway, like the swell of water from a ship far away, somewhere around me, invisible. Your consciousness is dissolving. Your identity is slowly spreading. The single static point of you is melting like ice into the ocean. And I can sense your amazement. And I can sense your amazement at this journey you never expected either. Your look of awestruck ecstasy as you pass through on your way to everything. Thank you, Pam, for letting me have this honor to be able to speak here today.
So we're next going to hear from Margaret McGill. And then, just to get you all ready, after that we're going to open the mic up a little bit and invite people to make a few comments and share some anecdotes. Margaret, where are you?
Okay, so hi, I'm Margaret. For those who don't know me, I am Tim's niece.
Oh, that's right.
About a month back, Caroleve and I were nearly coerced into watching old family films. It's not that we didn't want to see them, but rather we were wary of the sentimentality that each clip carried. Nevertheless, we sat in the basement of our grandparents' house, and we started what we were told to be 10 minutes of memories. Caroleve and I were born 12 hours apart, so we essentially grew up together. We were raised as sisters. Our parents were nearly interchangeable as they bounced between endless jobs and commitments other than their very small, very demanding children. As the time on the DVR progressed, This very togetherness was confirmed as video after video showed us playing in the pool together, going through our first birthdays, and getting into things that we probably shouldn't have even been near. As we were moving minute through minute, slide by slide, we were reflecting on the obvious changing that had occurred in the 18-year time gap. We were obviously not babies anymore, hairstyles had changed, and no one really wears those 90s light wash jeans anymore. But there was one constant that stuck out to both of us, Tim. Besides shedding the glasses, he was practically a mirror image from the past, his laugh in the clips sounding like it was right behind us. But that was just Tim. Just as he was strumming the guitar in our memories, he sat strumming the same tune in the same house to the same people. His intelligence and curiosity never wavered, but grew, as he visited the places that he already seemed to know everything about. Tim was a thesaurus that kept on expanding, a book of knowledge wound up into an unassuming musical man. Out of all the clips we watched on the TV that day, none of them really seemed to include his driving, and probably for good reason. If you've ever been lucky enough to drive with Tim, you know that based on his very scientific beliefs, the most efficient way to operate a car was to pump the gas, frequently. And while people like my sister may more associate this memory with car sickness, I think I think that this memory will dissolve into another chapter, another clip on our video reel. When I say dissolve, I don't mean fade. Tim will never fade to any of us. While his voice may stay in the form of audio from Maxi Finger and videos stored in basements, his impact on everyone in this room will persist. I will never stop remembering him. He will always be the person that knew everything about anything. He will always be the smartest person I know, and will always be the person that I think is the rightful Jeopardy champion. Yeah. He will always be something of a second father to me, and even though I cannot say thank you to him now, I hope that he knows how thankful I am for him for taking care of a past tiny year of me. Thank you.
So I made a little mistake. Before we open up the mic, we do have some important remarks from Dan Fine and Bill Wilcock. And Bill, sorry, I'm not letting you off the hook. You probably thought that I forgot to mention it. No.
Bill, be right up there, buddy. Hold on.
Take your time. Thanks, Dan and family, for offering me the chance to say a few words as well, and steal the mic away from soon-to-be Senator Tony Naughton. No, I mean, he's such a good speaker. That's all. We've been trying to coerce him into going into politics for some time. Anyway, I'll make a couple of quick remarks. As you know, Dan has a talent for capturing video and getting pictures to and for about special moments and putting them to film. A lot of what you see today is no shortage of Dan's efforts. So Dan, thank you. We know they're filled with your appreciation for Tim and his friendship. We know you loved him dearly, and he loved you too. And we look forward to the video we're about to see as a further tribute in that respect. My contribution to the video was focused on helping Dan find an audio track, not because I know as much about music as Tim. Can anybody here raise their hand and say they do? I had a special privilege of being on stage with Tim. I can't say I performed with Tim. I can't say it was absolutely musical.
No contribution. You're on stage.
I was on stage. It was a little bit of a distraction. And you may see the Maxi Fingers around T-shirts around the room. We should call out the other bandmates too, Carrie and Mike, who are in the room as well. Yeah, love you guys. So my contribution was to help Dan find a musical track. Would have loved to have it be a Maxi Finger song, but we'll play some of those later. As you know about the Maxi Finger gigs, as they went on in the years, it was really kind of special family members would be there, and you'd think, wow, what a great family experience this is, from the band's point of view. Not G-rated in any stretch, but loud and proud as Tim would have wanted it. But to find the right song took some effort, and I searched a lot of websites, punk rock, favorite memorial songs. It was rough. But we did stumble across one, and as soon as I saw it, I knew we had the right artist. Tim deeply respected David Byrne, the Talking Heads, great composer, artist, and musician. So we got one of his songs. In fact, and one of the things I read, it was one of, if not the only love song he ever wrote. So keep that in mind. It's upbeat, it's creative, like Tim, and it's got a little hint of the tropics in the instrumentation. So as you know, Tim loved being in Hawaii with the ones he loved as well. So that's where it came from, and it accompanies the video. And we hope you enjoy it. Thank you. So, lights.